Hey, what's up guys? Today's video is going to be 100% in English. So if you'd like to practice your English listening skills, then today's video is perfect for you. So primarily my goal is for you to have the opportunity to listen to a native speaker in such a way that will make it fairly easy for you to understand. Because I'm very aware of the fact that when you're watching movies and TV shows or listening to music in English, then it is very possible that you don't understand everything that is being said. And this is especially true when someone is using a particular type of accent or dialect, or they're talking very fast, or they're using words that maybe you're not familiar with. So I'm gonna try to keep today's video simple. I'm gonna try to speak fairly clearly and slowly, so that way hopefully everyone understands what I'm saying here today, or at least most people who watch today's video will understand most of what I'm saying. So the question then is, what am I going to talk about today? Well, since the #1 goal of today's video is that you understand a native speaker who's speaking English, that is the most important part. So the topic about what I'm going to be talking about is maybe not as important as simply you understanding the words that I'm saying, and also that you can make sense of what I'm saying, so that when you're done watching this, you can say, oh, okay, I understood almost all of the sentences that were spoken here today. And just to keep things easy and simple today, I think I'm just going to talk about the importance of you practicing your English. Because the reality is that if you want to improve your English, you need to practice your English with a real person. Like, you need to speak English. And it's especially beneficial for you to speak English with a native speaker. And obviously, it's incredibly beneficial, and I highly recommend that you also speak English with anybody. And in addition to that, that you do some type of studying at home. Whether you practice your listening skills, whether you practice reading, writing, maybe you use some type of a English language application, maybe you have a book, whatever it is, you should be doing something at home to practice your English. But more than likely, you can't practice speaking English with a native speaker at home, probably, unless of course you live with one. So that's what today's video is about the benefits of speaking English with a native speaker. And listen, I'm sure you've heard a million times from a million different people, and especially from me, how important it is for you to practice your English with a native speaker. And I'm sure that you realize why that's important. One of the biggest mistakes that I see that Polish people make when they speak English is that they don't know the proper pronunciation of English words. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other mistakes that Polish people make, and those mistakes can be related to sentence structure, grammar, a lack of knowledge of words. Oh, that's a good example, is the word lack. I've noticed that a lot of Polish people don't know what the word lack means. So if I say that a lot of people who are learning English lack an extended English vocabulary, then that means że im coś brakuje. They lack something. If you lack something, coś ci brakuje. Or we can also use the word lack slightly differently in a sentence. For example, the lack of knowledge. That means brak wiedzy. So to lack is a verb, że coś ci brakuje, and a lack, to jest brak. So in addition to proper pronunciation, of course, you know, people who are learning English, they lack vocabulary, they lack a basic, maybe not a basic, but they lack a extended understanding of grammar or sentence structure. For example, I often hear Polish speakers, when they speak English, they switch the sentences. Like, the sentence is not in the correct order. And all of this can be fixed by talking to a native speaker, especially a native speaker who is going to correct you. Now, by the way, if you are watching this and you're thinking, oh, actually, I've been looking for a native speaker, I'd like to have lessons with a native speaker, here's my email address. So send me an email because I've started having group English lessons. So if you have any questions and you'd like to join my English language groups where we speak 100% or 99% in English, and you want to practice your English with a native speaker, with myself, send me an email. But listen, you don't need to have English lessons with me. You just need to have English lessons with someone who is a native speaker. Now, can you have English lessons with someone who is not a native speaker? Absolutely. Especially if you're watching this and you don't understand what I'm saying. But that's probably not true for you because you would have turned this off already. So sometimes people say, oh, well, you know, I only want to have lessons with a native speaker. Native speakers are the best. And well, that depends, right? It depends on who the native speaker is, how much experience they have, and how good they are at their job. But also, and this is incredibly important, is that you have to be ready to have lessons with a native speaker, because not everyone is, right? If you don't understand what I'm saying now, then you shouldn't have lessons with a native speaker. If someone is starting to learn English from scratch, which means from nothing, right? If you don't speak English and you don't know how to create sentences in English, then you shouldn't have lessons with a native speaker. And listen, I understand nobody likes learning grammar because grammar is boring, am I right? But you need to understand some grammar before you can speak any language. And if you're able to communicate with a native speaker, if you're able to understand what a native speaker is saying, and if you're able to create even very, very, very basic sentences in English, then you can talk to a native speaker who is able to explain grammar. But if you can't understand a native speaker, then how can that native speaker explain anything to you? And that, of course, is when it would be much, much better to have an English teacher who speaks your language. When you're first starting out, you need a teacher who not only speaks your language, but also understands how the English language works. So ideally, this is someone who studied the English language. However, once you are past that initial English learning phase and you're ready to actually practice your English, then most of the time, it is probably better to have a native English speaker as your teacher. But again, I have to stress that not all native English speakers are the same, right? There are better ones and there are worse ones, because there are native speakers who have experience teaching and there are native speakers who do not. However, it's probably true that a native speaker who has no experience will probably be cheaper than a native speaker who has a lot of experience. So you have to figure out, like, how much are you willing to pay and what type of teacher do you want? Are you okay with speaking to anybody in English, which is fine? Or do you want someone who has experience and is gonna correct you, is gonna help you, stuff like that? And you also have to figure out, do you want lessons in a group or individually? And like I said, you gotta figure out what is your budget? How much money do you want to spend? Or how much money are you willing to spend? And the reality is, unfortunately, that if you want lessons with an English native speaker, you're probably gonna have to pay for it. Unless, of course, you have good connections or you're really good at using the internet. Because there are plenty of opportunities online where you can actually talk to native speakers for free. But of course, the internet is the internet. So maybe you find some cool people to talk to online, or maybe not. And so you have two options. Either you find someone online who's a native speaker and you can talk to them online for free, ideally, right? Or maybe you find someone who lives in your city who's a native speaker and you can actually hang out with them. You can meet them in person and they can become your friends in real life. Because that's the best way to learn English, is to make friends with native speakers. If you could do that, do that. If you have the opportunity to create a friend group of native English speakers, you should absolutely do that. That's much better than having English lessons in person or online, doesn't matter. The other option is to make friends online and to continue having conversations with these people online. For example, maybe you're a gamer, you like to play games online. That is a great way to meet native speakers and to speak English with them. So I definitely recommend doing that. But of course, you gotta find the right people who are actually cool and will become your friends, and not, just be assholes, right? There's plenty of assholes online. So you wanna find cool people who are your friends, and they'll help you and they'll correct you, and not people who are assholes and will make fun of you. Another thing you can do online are language exchanges, and that depends where you live. If you live in a bigger city in Poland, then absolutely you should be able to find language exchanges. Just go on to Facebook or Google and write language exchange Wrocław or language exchange Warszawa, whatever. And you should be able to find events in person where you can go meet new people who are also learning languages or are native speakers, or you can find language exchanges online even, right? If you don't want to do it in person, you could probably find someone who would do it online, and then you would help them practice whatever language they want to learn, and they would help you practice whatever language you want to learn. Okay, maybe not learn, right? Because they're not going to teach you a new language from scratch, from nothing. They're going to help you practice the language you already kind of know. So that's another option, is language exchanges. So I think the internet is full of possibilities. There's plenty of free ways to do it. It's just going to take maybe a little bit more time to do it. But if you need something that's going to be, fast and reliable, then obviously English lessons that you pay for are going to be, probably better for that. But you're just gonna have to pay for it. Anyway, I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say today, and hopefully, you were able to understand everything I was saying here today. Hopefully, this has given you positive encouragement to actually start practicing your English with a native speaker. I know that sometimes people think, oh, my English isn't good enough. Oh, my English is bad. Oh no, I don't speak English. And then they hear something like this today, and they think, oh, I actually understood everything. Maybe my English isn't so bad. So that was my goal today, is to help you realize just how good your English is. Maybe you didn't know the level of where you're at, but if you understood this video, then you're absolutely ready for lessons with a native speaker, or to practice with a native speaker, right? It's up to you whether you look for something free online or in person, or maybe you start having lessons, whether they're private lessons, individual lessons rather, or group lessons. And of course, if you'd like to have group lessons with me, just write me an email. And that's it for today. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.